Well, the eyes are on the presidential election, but what about the Senate? Which seats are most likely to flip, and which ones are toss-up? Our fearless prognosticator, John Waage, has come back to give it. John, tell us about the Senate, and how do you know about it?
A lot of prayer, Pat. I drove through about 12 states to get here, and I deliberately went through all the states in the upper Midwest and a lot of the states where there are contested Senate races. And of course, the presidential battlegrounds are there too. And so it was a lot of driving, a lot of praying, a lot of mulling over the election. And so the Senate, you asked about the Senate. I'm predicting there's not going to be a change in the Senate. Currently, the makeup of the Senate is 53 Republicans and 47 Democrats. And I know that a lot more Republican seats are at stake this year, 23 of them to 12 Democrat. But I just believe that this is a base turnout year and that there will be no change in the election. So the Republicans will come out of it 53-47. Now, I know that flies in the face of almost every pundit, especially the ones based in Washington, but that's what I'm sticking with.
All right, John, now you predicted, for example, you said Susan Collins is going down in Maine, and Cory Gardner is going down, I believe, in Colorado to Hickenlooper. Right. But you say the James is going to win in Michigan, and Tommy Tuberville will win in Alabama. So that's a trade-off.
Right. The Alabama race is fairly certain that Tuberville is going to pull that off, and so the Republicans start basically with one seat up, and then I do see an upset in Michigan with John James. This is his second straight election. He ran in 2018 against Debbie Stabenow. Now he's running against Gary Peters. He's hanging right in there in the polls, and I think that the turnout for Trump may push John James into the Senate this year.
Oh, you've got some others that you've got McSally in Arizona. You get. What about some of those races?
Well, and I think we have a map where it shows states that Democrats would like to take away from Republicans and states that Republicans would like to take away from Democrats. You see it there. The light blue states are states that I'm not picking to flip, but all those blue states are ones that Democrats could win. And among those are Lindsey Graham in South Carolina and Tom Tillis in North Carolina and David Perdue in Georgia. They're on the East Coast. Montana, Steve Daines is battling the current governor, Steve Bullock. In Kansas, there's an open seat to fill Pat Roberts' retirement, and the Republicans having a battle with the Democrat there. And then, of course, Joni Ernst in Iowa and Martha McSally in Arizona. So, you know, there are many more Democrat seats to choose from than Republican, but I still think that in the last days of the campaign that the voting is going to break for President Trump and the Republicans, and I think that will rescue some of these senators who are in big trouble.
I suppose we're supposed to talk about the Senate and that, of course, but shall we? Do you trust the polls this year, by the way?
I don't trust the polls, Pat. I think that it showed 4 years ago that people don't tell the truth to pollsters, especially conservative people. And I think that they have oversampled in many cases Democratic voters. And I also think that there's a shift among Democratic voters who will show up for Trump in the on Election Day. We used to say on Election Day, and now we say for the last 6 weeks, you know,
what parallels I mean, you and I were the first ones to call Trump's victory. Everybody else said there's no path to victory, and you figured it out. It was going to be Ohio, it would be Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and so forth. What parallels do you see to the election of 1980 that you got on now?
Well, the election in 1980 was interesting, Pat. You were one of the leaders of getting upwards of 500,000 to 1 million Christians to the Capitol in Washington, and for Washington for Jesus. And this year, Franklin Graham and Jonathan Cahn organized the return and the march in Washington, and I was struck watching it at home in Kansas of some of the sincere repentance and the calling on the Lord. And it reminded me of that time where I got to walk down the streets of Washington in 1980, just a few feet away from our beloved Ben Kinchlow. And the Lord did something in that time. Nobody was predicting that year in 1980 that there would be an 11-seat changeover in the U.S. Senate. But that's exactly what happened along with the election of Ronald Reagan. There came in a changeover in the Senate for the first time in decades. And I'm not saying that it's the exact same thing this time, but I think that the repentance and the calling on the Lord at these gatherings, and not just those gatherings. There are others that are happening this weekend, prayer events in Washington, and all over the country, people have been really sincerely before the Lord. And I think that He is going to hear an answer in the similar way that He did in 1980.
This isn't part of the format, but let's go ahead and get the overall. You think the Republicans will hold the Senate, maybe gain a few seats in the Senate, but you've made an amazing prediction for the House, and that, to me, you're a little strange, but what do you think on that one?
Well, I think that this is a base turnout election, and yes, it's true. A lot of the Washington pundits, the people who have studied it and are experts in it, are saying that the Democrats are going to gain 5 to 10 seats. I see the Republicans winning enough seats to take back the House of Representatives and 20-something in the seats. I've been praying, and I feel like what I heard was the results are going to be astounding. Now, they may be astounding in a way that I can't believe, where it's a landslide blue election, but I'm going to take it to mean that astounding means some things that are unforeseen coming along in the results, whenever we get them, whether it's Tuesday night or sometime in the days or weeks ahead.
What we'd all love to see, I mean, I don't say all, but so-called Shifty Shift, he's made up so many things over the years, and maybe if he loses his chairmanship, it might not be a bad thing. Last one, John, what about the presidential? Where are you calling that one?
Well, I see President Trump getting elected with about 323 electoral votes to 215 for Joe Biden. That could go either way. It could be a much narrower victory. I know a lot of people are forecasting a Biden win, but if you look on the ground, if you see what's happening on the ground, it's just not imaginable that there's going to be a sweeping Biden victory. And I think Trump's frenetic and really energetic campaigning over the next few days will make a difference. I think this is breaking at the last minute. And there are some things, Pat, I just wanted to mention. I think this election is about several things that may not be as high on the radar screen as it should be. One of them is Israel. The Lord has eternal plans and purposes for Israel, and that is a factor in this election, whether it gets mentioned a lot or not. The second thing is the children, and those who are being formed now in the womb, and those who are being trafficked around the world globally. And a third thing is the two-tiered system of justice, where some people are punished severely for crimes and others are allowed to skate, where the balance of scales is off in Washington, D.C. And the fourth thing is endemic corruption that has been there for decades. And I think these things are beginning to be exposed, and I think that the results of the election will accelerate the process on exposing the corruption in Washington.
Well, John, we appreciate your fearless forecast. Isn't that it's amazing. Well, he called it last time, and he and I together were the only ones saying there was a path to victory for the president to win, and lo and behold, he won. Then it was challenger Trump.
Pat, you said it earlier than I did. You called it earlier than I did.
Okay, I'm giving you credit for it. But
I was stressing out on the Sunday before the election saying, can I really do this as an analyst?
Well, you heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see what happens.